Hello and welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. My name is Jordan and today we are going to be looking at Elijah Craig's Small Batch. Now, I'm standing in my kitchen here. You can see this is my kitchen. So in this episode we are going to be making some homemade energy bars for hunting or hiking or anything like that. And we'll get into that second, but first we're going to review this Elijah Craig small batch. It's a NAS, so a non-age statement whiskey. The brand is owned by Heaven Hill, and it is distilled in the Elijah Craig Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. It's a 94 proof whiskey or 47% ABV. It's your classic bourbon. This little tag here, I'll read it real quick. It says best small batch bourbon at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition 2018, won double gold. The backstory on this whiskey is that a Baptist minister moved to Kentucky when they were giving away free land in Kentucky back in the 1700s, hence on the bottle, 1789. That was the year that Elijah was credited with first putting charred oak or whiskey into oak barrels for flavoring. It's not really a provable story, and some historians believe that that is probably false, and since it's not provable or unprovable, either way, it's one of those things that's just kind of the distillery's taken and run with that novelty and used it in their branding, and so that's what we got. But anyways, it's a pretty good whiskey. It's reasonably priced for sure. You can pick it up, 25, 26 bucks here in Wyoming. Again, in the comments below, please leave the price that you can find it for in your area so that everybody can maybe start looking around and finding better prices on whiskey. Now, I poured this glass maybe 2 minutes ago. When I first smelled it, right up front, it had a very strong, light fruit, apple, apricot, pear kind of a smell to it. That was the dominating smell. A little bit of corn, really, really light on the wood. But it was just a really fruity smell. Now that it is sit for a couple of minutes, it opened up quite a bit. So now it's like very, very heavy corn dust, super heavy caramel and vanilla. It just smells really, really sweet. It smells really good. Has a very good nose on it. And tasting it, you get those fruits are kind of forward, sweet, caramel in the middle. It's a little bit higher alcohol, so you got a little bit of burn down the throat, but it's not too bad. It's not a super outrageous ABV on there, so it's not bad at all. But it does have some burn in the throat, but it's pretty good whiskey. Now, the finish for me has this dry peach or apricot wine flavor to it. So if you've ever made homemade wine from either apricots or peach and you let it go till it got as dry as you could get it, that's kind of the aftertaste that I get on it, the finish, with some oak notes in there then and a little bit of caramel and then some sweet to kind of round it out at the very end. Has a very interesting profile to it. The way that it transitions from one to the next, from one flavor to the next, is it's pretty interesting. I think you'd really like it. It has a fairly complex flavor. It's a nice sipping bourbon. So if you find any of those notes that I've already mentioned kind of interesting or intriguing, it's not a very expensive whiskey, so it's something you can go out. It's very readily available throughout the country. You might want to consider it. Go ahead and try some. A little bit of cherry came through on that one. Going back in there, pulled out just a random cherry note that I hadn't gotten before. So there you go. I guess you'd call it a classic bourbon. According to the awards gig, they call it, top-notch, award-winning bourbon, and it seems pretty reasonable. So go ahead, Elijah Craig. It's the small batch. It used to be Elijah Craig 12 year. Back during the bourbon shortage here, they went away from the 12-year and moved into a NAS, which is a non-age statement whiskey. But basically, this brand has replaced the 12-year brand of Elijah Craig. So it's Elijah Craig Small Batch, 1789. Go ahead and check it out. Okay, so for today's project, we are going to make energy bars. Now, these are the energy bars that I used this last season for my elk hunt. And I'll tell you right now, they taste delicious, unlike most energy bars. And they really, really are a high-calorie bar. So this is not an original recipe. I will put the recipe down in the description of this video. And I got this recipe from Kuiu. So Kuiu Camouflage and all their gear. If you go on their website, or actually the easiest way to find it is just run a search for Kuiu energy bars. And what they did is they went and they explored some energy bar recipes to try and get the highest calories and the least amount of weight possible, so that way you're not lugging a bunch of weight with you. Those guys are big into sheep hunting and high alpine hunts, so with the type of hunting that they do, it's best to have the lightest, most calorie dense food that they can get. And so this is the recipe that they came up with. Just quickly, it's 1.5 cups dried dates. And you might think dates are kind of hard to find, but here I found dates. These are the Great Value brand from Walmart. I found them at Walmart in the same spot that I found the craisins. So, they're not that hard to find. So 1.5 cups dried dates, 1.25 cups dried cranberries, and 2 cups dry roasted peanuts. Now, I'm not a huge peanut fan. Peanuts definitely are high in calories and are a good source of protein. But flavor-wise, I don't get into peanuts too much in my energy bar. And so in place of the peanuts, I'm going to use almonds and cashews, and I'm just going to mix these 50-50. Now, that's it. That's the entire recipe, just those 3 ingredients. I have found that you can augment that a fair bit. So I'm actually going to put in some coconut and some chia seeds. And then I'm not going to do it this time. But last year, the other thing I put in it was some chocolate protein powder, and that mixes in really well. It bumps up your protein content, bumps up your calories and your sugar a little bit, and it just gives a bar a real pleasant flavor. So that's another thing that I put in there. You can also use things like raisins. Sorry, let me restate that. Raisins, almonds, pistachios, cashews, chia seeds, protein powder, hazelnuts, and macadamia nuts are good ones to use as well. Macadamia nuts especially, they're very high in calories, nutrient-dense nuts. So you can use those. And all we're going to do is we are going to use our food processor. And if you don't have a food processor, don't worry about it. You can use a blender, you can use a Ninja or any other device like this. And we're going to first take and kind of chop up the nuts that we're going to put in there. We're going to take those, dump those into a bowl, and then we're going to take and we're going to combine the dates and the craisins or the dried cranberries, and we're going to kind of make a paste with those by using this food processor. Now, I got craisins because it's what I could get. If you want to cut down on the added sugars and stuff like that. Now, sugar is a good source of energy when you're out burning it. And dates especially are very, very high in natural sugars. Like these Ocean Spray craisins, they have a lot of added sugar in them. So if you want, you can find just regular dried cranberries without the added sugar, or raisins, or a combination of the two. That will make a good secondary component to these bars. These are a no-bake bar, so you don't have to worry about cooking or anything like that. We're just going to blend everything up. We're going to mix it together. We're going to dump it into a pan lined with some wax paper. We're going to press it out so that it becomes nice and flat and bar-like. And then you just pop it in the freezer. So once you put it in the freezer, you let the bars harden up. And you can take and cut the bars into individual bar sizes then, and then wrap them up in some wax paper, put a little chunk of tape on it, and you got a very pack-friendly food to take with you. So we're just going to do this real quick, and hopefully it works out. So I personally am not a big believer in measuring stuff out. So you probably won't see me using a measuring cup, but you know, you do what you need to. I kind of go by eye, and when I see things looking appropriate, that's kind of how I do it. So, you know, got approximately a cup of almonds, and we're going to put in approximately a cup of cashews. This will give us our 2 cups of nuts, so the nut component of this. So in the recipe, they have 2 cups of peanuts. And you'll see, I have my recipe. I handwrite it. I just copied it off of the Kuiu website. I put all my recipes that I handwrite into a 1-gallon Ziploc bag. This way, while I'm reading and cooking and whatever, if anything splatters onto my recipes, I can just wipe it off the bag. Kind of a little trick. I just keep them in there, and then you can read right through the bag. I know you can't see it because of the reflection from the sun coming through the window, but you can just read it right through the bag. So that's a little trick that I use. Anyways, let's see here. Get this sucker put together. Now you don't want to emulsify this. You just want to make it so that the nuts are kind of crushed up and nice and easy. See, now I wasn't prepared. I didn't get out my bowl, but luckily our bowls are right here. So we're just going to dump the nuts into a bowl. Lock this down. Come on, slide into place. There we go. Now we're cooking. All right, so we're going to take our dates. It says 1.5 cups of dates. Now, if you've never had dates on their own, they're super sweet. It's like eating brown sugar. I actually prefer them standalone, or like them standalone. But you know, do whatever you need to. And then we're gonna put in some craisins. Boom, got all of that. Now we're gonna chop this stuff up. We're just going to do this until it creates kind of a paste. And this is going to be our binding agent to get all of our ingredients to bind together. There we go. So, what you can see, hopefully, maybe not from this distance, but it just kind of formed a big ball of goo, and this is really what you're looking for. So, we got that. Now we're going to add our coconut. You can just add this, or you don't have to add it, but just eyeball it, kind of what you think. I'm going to mix my dry ingredients together. So I like coconut, and I think it's a really good source of energy. So add in maybe a cup of coconut. And chia seeds, they go a really long way. I can get into this dang bag. So you don't need a lot of these, like maybe a half a cup or a quarter cup of chia seeds. Now that I have all my dry ingredients into my bowl, I'm going to just mix it by hand. Kind of spread everything around good. Break up any chunks of coconut that are in there. Okay, get everything out of the way here so you can see what's going on. So, we've got our bowl, mixing this up. Get rid of that. Okay, so now we're going to add in our mixture of our dates and our cranberries. We're just going to plop that in there. Now, you can use a spoon or whatever to try and get all this stuff to combine. Personally, I think you're going to want to use your hands, even though it's super gummy. Kind of mix it up. So start by just coating all your goo, your dates and cranberry mixture with your dry ingredients. This will keep it from sticking to your hands too bad. And then slowly incorporate the two by just kind of squeezing it together, pulling the chunks apart, breaking it up. And you just want to mix it until everything's good and mixed together. And it forms a ubiquitous, boy, I can't say that word today. A homogeneous, how about that? So it forms a homogeneous mixture. So everything's mixed together really good, kind of equal parts. Now, if you've done your proportions right, or if you followed a recipe, everything should kind of work out really well together. And you shouldn't have too much dry ingredient or too much wet ingredient. But you never know when you do it the way that I just did it, where I just dumped stuff in there. But it appears that everything's looking good. So you want just sticky, like see how this is kind of sticky crumbs? That's what you're going to want out of this. So when you get all of your dry ingredient kind of incorporated into the mixture, then clean your hands off a little bit. They shouldn't be too bad. And you're going to take your wax paper and you're going to line a pan with your wax paper. You're going to dump your mixture into your lined pan. Just like that. Making sure that you get it inside the wax paper, not outside like I just did. Okay, and now just take and use your hands to press everything down into bar shape. And if you find any areas where you don't have quite enough of the date and craisin mixture, and it's just mostly nuts and it's not really combining, you can take and incorporate it into the middle of your mixture here and just press it in, and then work that area back out into that corner or side or wherever it is that isn't quite right. This way you get everything really well incorporated, and yeah, get a nice bar out of it. Now you can vary the size of the bars that you make and how thick they are for your your style of use. The guys at Kuiu are saying that their recipe and stuff were coming out to be about 138 calories per ounce, which is pretty darn good. And man, I don't have the size that they were cutting them into, but for comparison, like a whole candy bar is like total 200 in the 200s, like a Snickers bar or most of your candy bars, they're going to be somewhere in that 200 calorie to 300 calorie range, and so this is a lot more calories, which, as I said in some of my previous videos, you don't want to be out there hunting or hiking and using that as your time for cutting calories. You want to be able to get that as calorie dense or as many calories as you can during that time. Like when I'm out hunting, I know I'm going to be burning somewhere in the neighborhood about 4,000 calories a day, and it's hard to replace that many calories. So the foods that you eat, you want to make sure you can get as much of the calories as you can in that time. So here we go. We got everything kind of pressed in here now. Best way to do this is to take another sheet of wax paper. Now I didn't do this, and you can see I'm kind of having some trouble with it sticking to my hands. But take another sheet of wax paper, stick it over the top of this, and use that to press into it so that, you know, like here I can use this side. It won't stick to your hands, and it'll help form up nicely kind of everything in your pan. And when you're done, you should end up with stuff that looks pretty well packed together and in the bottom of your pan. Okay, so now take your pan and stick it in the freezer for about 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm not going to show that, obviously, because, you know, that would be pretty boring. But stick it in the freezer, pull it back out, cut it up into the size that you want, and then take this wax paper, fold it up like a Christmas present real nice, put a stick of tape on it, and you're golden. So once again, I want to credit Kuiu for this recipe. Go out, try and find that on their website. It's really simple. Just run a search for Kuiu energy bars, pops right up. And I'll put the recipe in the description below. Once again, thanks for watching this video. Go out and try yourself some Elijah Craig and see if it's something that you find interesting. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and throw them in the comment section below. I'll run through them and see what you guys have to say. And if you have anything else you want to talk about, also let me know for future video ideas. I'd be happy to start exploring some new stuff. But thanks for watching. Hope you have yourselves a great day, and we'll catch you on the next video.